Welcome to the May edition of the Libraries Connecting Texas webinar. We have Cheryl Miller, Kyle Lewis, and Patty Hollingforth. I'm Caroline Wolf. And we're going to just talk a little bit about some timely things, and then we'll answer any questions that you may have. We're here to answer your E-rate questions because some of you are new to the program and you kind of want to know maybe what to expect next. So we have filed 127 applications this year for about almost $2 million in funding. 6 applications are being reviewed right now, and the rest of them were funded. So that's exciting. We had an average bandwidth of 781 megabits per second, almost a gig. The cost this year per megabit went down to $2.25 per meg, and that's down from $5.26 last year. So that's showing that the cost of internet is going down for libraries in Texas, and that's a really good thing. That means that you can get more of it for the same amount that you've been paying. So as of right now, $1.7 million of that $2 million requested has been funded. So we're just waiting for a little bit more to be funded. So, you know, for those of you who filed applications last year in 2022, if you haven't already been getting your discounts via the SPY method, or maybe you have, you might want to know, so how do I get my discounts? Even those people who may be new to it, how do I get my discounts? That's the invoicing process. And Kyle's going to talk a little bit about that because we have some deadlines coming up and we want to make sure that you're ready to get your money back. So Kyle, you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Caroline. So for invoicing for the funding year 2022, you are going to want to start collecting your invoices from that period between July 1st, 2022 and June 30th of 2023. If you are going with SPY billing and you are meant to be receiving those discounts on your billing from the service provider, you should check your billing to make sure that that discount is being applied. If you chose Bear and are paying in full each month, we have a 2022 Bear workbook template that you can fill out with that information, that billing information for July through June. And that's a great way to document the analysis that you did, and then it's a great staging area for the information that is going to go onto the Bear when you file the Bear.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, and even if you aren't using the Bear method and you're using the SPY method, if you want to know how much you should be getting discounts, you know, how much you should be getting, that's a good way to do it too. You can use that Bear workbook to figure that out.
That's a great point. Absolutely. You know, definitely double check just to make sure. And then for funding year 2023, as funding commitment decision letters are being sent out, and as people are filing their Form 486 for funding year 2023 services, you are going to need to select a invoice mode, the SPY billing, service provider invoice billing. Again, that's where the discount is being applied directly to the bill that you're receiving, and then the service provider would be responsible for invoicing a USAC, the Universal Service Administrative Company, for that discounted amount, leaving just the undiscounted amount for the library to pay. If you chose Bear, or are going to choose Bear, then you would be receiving the undiscounted invoices each month and paying the bill in full, and then seeking reimbursement from the Universal Service Administrative Company, USAC, by filing a Bear. And you could do that each month, you could do that quarterly, or you could do it yearly. It's often most convenient to just do it once a year after that June bill comes in and is paid for. And it is important that you make this choice and notify your service provider prior to the start of the funding year, and then monitor your bill to make sure that the discount is being applied if you chose SPY, or is not being applied if you chose Bear. And more to that, many service providers will require applicants to complete a invoice election form that states what their preferred invoice method is. I think a lot of the larger service providers like AT&T, Spectrum have dedicated forms for this. If you've not received this from them, you may want to reach out to them for that documentation to establish that before we reach July 1st, 2023. Because you'll want to make sure that you've elected for SPY or Bear prior to them making assumptions one way or the other.
And many of these service providers will require you to fill out that form before they'll start applying your discounts to the bill. So it's really important, if they do have that form, for you to take care of it right away. That's usually something that they send when they see you get funded, and the Form 486 sort of triggers it. So look out for it, make sure that it happens.
Great point. And this is just an example of a bill. You may have one that's very similar to this, but what you'll need to look for are a few items on that bill. The invoice billing period, the period for which those services are, the current eligible charges. Typically this will be on a line that indicates internet or business internet or something similar to that. The bandwidth is also included on the bill in a lot of cases. On this bill, for example, their bandwidth is 200 megabits per second download and 20 megabits per second upload. And that's what that 200/20 is there. So as you're checking your bill, also make sure that the bandwidth is being reflected accurately, and you're not getting charged for a different level of bandwidth than what you contracted or signed an agreement for. Current ineligible charges. Items like late fees would be ineligible. Other items, if you have your internet bill combined with a phone bill, the phone portion of that would not be eligible under E-rates. But there are some taxes and fees that may be eligible, and there's one highlighted there, a state cost recovery fee. If you're uncertain about which taxes and fees and which items are eligible or ineligible, please reach out to us and we can help you figure that out. And I believe on this page we have another example of a differently formatted bill. You might have something more like this. And again, you're looking for a invoice billing period. On here, it's indicating for January 10th, 2021 through February 9th, 2021. You'll want to make sure that you have the bills for the 2022 funding year. So July 1st, 2022 through June 30th of 2023. And then of course the eligible charges, ineligibles. I think in this case, that's a maintenance cost, and that would not be eligible for the Category 1 Internet Access Services that you're receiving E-rate discounts on. And then bandwidth is also included in there as well. So just to recap, all libraries who paid for services in full will need to file a Bear invoice prior to funding year 2022. If you are not sure what E-rate discount method you used, please reach out to us and we can help you make sure that you're invoiced prior to that deadline that's upcoming. And next,
Bye.
Cheryl will discuss some next steps and upcoming deadlines.
Perfect. Thanks, Kyle. So this part of the presentation, we're going to be looking towards the upcoming months. To start with, we have invoicing for that funding year 2022 that Kyle mentioned. And as a reminder, again, that's July 2022 to June 2023. The two deadlines that are important here are that October 28th, 2023 is going to be for the recurring services like category 1, and that's your monthly recurring charges for internet. And then for some libraries, that could actually mean a category 2 service of recurring like basic maintenance. There's also that January 28th, 2024 for non-recurring charges. That's going to be something like installation or necessary equipment that's under category 1 or category 2 internal connections. Over here on the right-hand side, you'll see some of you have probably already seen some of the funding coming out with receiving that FCDL or your funding commitment decision letter. If you receive that prior to July 1st, you will need to have your Form 486 certified by October 29th, 2023. And you want to make sure that before you actually certify that form, you are SIPA compliant. If you receive after July 1st, your due date for certifying the 486 is going to be 120 days after you receive the FCDL. We do recommend that you do this as soon as possible just to make sure that you do meet that deadline. And then, of course, if you have any questions on your decision letter or on how to certify the 486, don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks, Cheryl. And just to make sure everybody understands, I think Cheryl said this, and it's in there, the FCDL, you need to make sure you receive your funding commitment decision letter before you file the 486, because you can't file it until that happens.
Absolutely. So now there are some upcoming deadlines for ECF if you were a part of that. We have a deadline actually coming up next month on June 30th for Windows 1 and 2. And that's to order and receive your devices and or services if you have not already. This is for anyone funded prior to December 31st, 2022 for equipment, and then June 30th, 2022 for recurring services. So that's going to be a deadline for those that meet that criteria of the August 29th. Now, if you were late funded for equipment and or services, the deadlines were extended under a recent Wireline Competition Bureau order, and those deadline details are actually located here in the table, but most are going to fall under that initial deadline, which are actually highlighted here on the slide.
And those of you who filed for ECS, just keep those deadlines in mind, because the FCC doesn't have any plans for extensions, automatic extensions of the invoice deadline or anything like that. So, yeah.
So, and then for this last one, thanks for attending. On the screen, you'll find the phone number for the LCT hotline, and then also you see our email address there for any questions that you have. At the bottom, as usual, we have our online resources and also our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to it because we've got videos on there, and then all of these webinars are actually uploaded to there. So if you need a refresher, it's there. And then make sure on the weekly newsletter, you're looking for any kind of updates or deadlines that might be included in that, and that's weekly on Mondays. And then the next webinar on Thursday, June 22nd, same time, 2 p.m. Central Time. And I will turn it back over to Caroline.
Thanks, Cheryl. So now is the time when we open things up for questions. Is anybody wanting to know anything? Armandina, I see you there. I saw that your application is in initial review. So I think we will be seeing either a funding letter or some requests for some documentation soon. So keep that in mind. Anybody have any questions or something that you need clarified while we're all still here? Even if it wasn't something we discussed, if you have an E-rate question, this is a good time to ask. And there's no such thing as a stupid question, because E-rate is a complicated program, and that's what we're here to do, is to help you with answering any of the questions that you may have. Everybody's so quiet today. So we are going to keep track of your deadlines for you and keep reminding you. I do know that there was some newsletters that came out today. One was for ECF. Not all of you filed for ECF discounts, but some of you did. And there was also an E-rate news brief that came out that had a lot of information about deadlines that are coming up that you might want to look over. And if you have any questions after you read those, of course, you can either call us at the LCT hotline at 516-801-7820 or reach out to any of us, send an email. We're here to help. So if there are no questions, we'll let you have the rest of your day back. Thanks so much for being here, and watch for the recording of this on YouTube.